Everyone, this is your boy Des the King, and we back yet again with another episode of King Talk TV. Today I have a special guest. He has a podcast called The Travel Wins. A friend of mine I met online here on Instagram by the name of Peter. I don't want to butcher his name, but I'm going to try Kotzbach. I hope I didn't completely mess that up, but he has an award-winning podcast called The Travel Wins, and today is actually a podcast about podcasting. So we're going to talk about podcasts in general, and we're going to talk about the history of podcasts, the good and the bad, and where is podcasting going to go in the next 5 or 10 years. So yeah, if you're just watching this live on Instagram, please comment who you are, comment where you're from, and let me know what's going on with you. If you're watching this on YouTube, please consider giving this a like, comment below your thoughts, and consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell. And without further ado, we're going to bring Peter on right now. We're going to get this episode on the road.
Oh, what's up, buddy?
Hey, man, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Just another afternoon. How you doing, bro?
Bro, I'm doing well, man. I'm glad that we finally got something together, and we're both and you're on my show today, man. But
I appreciate it.
Good to see you and good to hear from you, man. Before we start, your name is Peter, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I said your name at the beginning. Is it Kotzbach? Kotzbach?
Pretty good. Yeah, Kotzbach.
Pretty good. Kotzbach. Yeah. Okay, awesome, man. Again, man, thank you for taking time out to join me today on this is the King Talk TV podcast, and today, as you probably know, that we're going to talk about podcasting in general. This is a podcast about podcasts, and just want to discuss your thoughts on podcasting. What do you think is going to go in the future, and how it's affecting our day-to-day lives, as individuals. But first, I want to ask you this question. Did you ever think that you will have a podcast, that you will be even doing this type of thing on a daily basis? And what is your history as far as, like, what do you do? Do you have a degree in communication or anything? What led up to you doing a podcast?
Let's see. That's a lot of questions.
Yeah.
Never in my life did I think I would have a podcast, or be. I had never recorded my own voice before my first episode.
Wow.
I had never heard my own voice back. Not even close. No degree at all, much less a degree in communications. I've been in sales or management for 30 plus years. So I just been a working guy, just doing what I do. And then, so 4 years ago, I had a buddy in the UK who through Instagram, we started being in front, and he goes, "Hey, I've started a podcast. I'd like people to listen to my first episode." So I listened to the episode, and I forget the exact content of what he called his podcast, but basically he got onto an MMA stint. And when he started talking about MMA, he got all fired up. You could just hear it in his voice.
Yeah.
And so when he got done with this, and I was just a listener, I said, "Man, you should really think about an MMA podcast, because you're talking about this, but when you start talking about," he goes, "I've been thinking about doing that forever. I was just afraid to." And he's in just outside of London. So he started an MMA podcast, and he'd been to fights now as part of the press. He's interviewed fighters, he's interviewed managers and all that. And he said, "You should start one in the US." And I'm like, for one, I think there's a lot of MMA podcasts. And I don't know that I'd want to talk about it every single week.
Yeah.
So it made me think, what do I want to talk about? What do I think would make me interested for the next, at the time I thought of, a few months to maybe a year. And so I traveled for my work. So my day job, what I call my day job is I sell Western clothing. So I sell cowboy boots, jeans, and shirts to Western retail stores in California and Hawaii. And so I traveled for work, and I was like, man, most of the people that I know also travel for work because I meet them on the road or we just have something in common. So I figured I'd start interviewing people that travel for their work. And that's how it all got started.
Nice, man. Nice.
Yeah.
It's crazy how you never expect things to happen to you, then you bump into someone and it just changes everything in your whole life, man. I do like that. So like, let me ask you this, Peter. Your podcast is pretty popular. You won an award for it, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And I know you didn't picture winning the award. You never even pictured starting one. Nevertheless, winning an award for one. So, so you winning an award, to me, that would mean that you have influenced or impacted a pretty substantial amount of people. You know, just you by yourself. When we talk about podcasting, it gives the power to individuals like you and myself to pretty much reach anyone in the world and get to know anyone and be able to put out our opinion or our point of view or whatever our product or whatever to anyone, you know. So what are your thoughts on how podcasting has impacted individuals and liberated individuals like us to be able to do this sort of thing?
Yeah, I've told people, some of my past guests, you know, so my show's been listened to a couple 100,000 people.
Nice.
In 156 countries, you know.
Nice.
And I'm literally just a one-man show doing this out of my house, you know. So I don't have a production team. I don't have, you know, all this and that. But the ability to have with your phone, because I think the first 120 episodes I did were all on my phone, recorded right off my phone. So, I mean, there was no production value. It wasn't video. It wasn't even video. So it was just like, I would just record a phone conversation I had with all these people. And then I would edit it and then put it out and do all that. But I think podcasting it's interesting because, you know, I'm old. I'm much older than you. You know, so when I was your age, there was only TV, you know, and then they had cable TV, and that was it. I mean, like, there's no way for you to broadcast out to the world before the internet. And even when the internet first got started, it was impossible. It wasn't even like, or at least for me, I never went, hey, I could share my ideas with the world. You know, it was not even a thought growing up.
Yeah.
So it's a trip thinking. I mean, I've had guests from where I've recorded them in Japan, Jamaica, Slovenia. You know, I mean, how that just didn't happen back in my day growing up.
Right. A quick history lesson. When I was researching a little things about the history of podcasting, it actually it's been around for about 40 years, maybe. I'll be 34 in September, so it's pretty old.
Yeah.
Before it was labeled podcasting, though, they were called audio blogs.
Yeah.
But the internet was so new then, there wasn't enough bandwidth to download and, like you said, to even get your stuff out of there. So no one was ever really thinking about at the beginning getting your stuff out. But towards the 2000s, when the iPod came out and all that, it changed everything. Everything. So now it's just like, you know, everyone has a podcast. Not everyone, but everyone is listening to one or has one at one point in their lives. You know, so I think that's really, really crazy. My next question to you, Peter, was, okay, when we think about the news, we think about centralized news, we think about CNN, Fox News, you know, all the big news corporations.
Sure.
Back, 30 years ago, this is where mainly people got their information from.
Absolutely.
And newspapers. Newspapers. Fast forward, years later, we now have podcasts, which now people research their own things and they put out their own information.
Yeah.
So my question to you, are podcasts needed these days to disperse information and keep it from being so centralized? In your opinion?
I don't know that they're needed because, I mean, need and want are different, right? I mean, you don't need it because we didn't have it before and we still got along. But I would say it'd be hard to put that genie back in the bottle.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, like a lot of people get mad about Joe Rogan and his podcast and how many millions of people it reaches. But yet it's just, you don't have to listen to it. It's just free information, right? And that's the one thing, like before cable, you got your news from ABC, NBC, or CBS. And then you had the local channel, for us it's Channel 5, KTLA and all that. But then that was it. I mean, you got like 2 hours, you'd get the 5 o'clock news channel, and and maybe 6 o'clock, and that was it. Now with the 24/7 cable channels and all that, they're just filling time and advertising dollars. So, I mean, they have to fill that time, and they have to fill it with something that's going to create sensation so they can get their advertising dollars. We don't have to do that with our podcast. We can just share our thoughts and opinions, and if people watch this and go, that guy's full of crap, then they can throw it away and say he's full of crap. If you only had 3 channels to watch, you had to listen to somebody. So I think the big channels had a greater influence than they do now because of things like what we're doing.
Right. But you wouldn't say it's absolutely needed that this information needs to be dispersed the way it is.
No.
Okay.
Because I mean, if the internet went away tomorrow, I mean, would we all fall apart and die? No.
It would be chaos, though.
It would be chaos. Yeah.
We probably wouldn't die in an instant, no, but man, it would be tough with no internet, right? Or you don't think so? You think everything would just?
I went a long time without the internet, so I don't know.
Okay.
Like I said, I don't think you can put the genie back in the bottle, though. I mean, it's out. Right. People are getting their information. The internet's not going anywhere.
Right.
So I mean, well, you look at the ability of governments to crack down, though, right? I mean, they could absolutely say, hey, you're cut off. You're cut off. You're cut off. You're not allowed to say that. You're not allowed to say that. Right. That's the scary part about that information board that the president made, and I guess it's gone away now. The disinformation advisory board, whatever it was.
Yeah.
It's like, well, who gets to decide what's misinformation?
That's why. Yeah.
I mean, you do jiu-jitsu, right?
Yeah.
Are all black belts equal?
No.
Do they all teach equal?
No.
Some are more leg game guys. Some are top game guys. Some more X guard game. Right? But they're all black belts.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like news is the same way, right? I mean, CNN shows one thing that's kind of structured one way, and Fox News does their thing, and MSNBC does their thing. They're all news, and they're all not wrong, but they're all not all right either.
Exactly. I mean, we already have the fact checkers.
Yeah. And they're wrong.
And they're wrong.
They're wrong. Look them up.
Yeah.
They're not wrong on everything, but they're not always right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just for them to be labeled as fact checkers it's like, okay, you're the fact checker. So everything that you check, you're saying to me that everything that you check is right, or taken in the proper context of, you're right. So it's such a and it's so hypocritical to me for them to even mention that, but I want to save that for another episode to talk about. You did mention Joe Rogan. He just signed
nice guy.
Yeah, really great guy. He's actually my inspiration to do a podcast, because he's, just to talk about it a little bit, his show, he seems open-minded on a lot of things, and he seems knowledgeable on so many things. And yet he has a diversity of guests. There's not like a particular niche that he has. To me, he just interviews whoever he thinks is interesting. And I was like, okay, well, I want to do a podcast like that. I want to just interview interesting people who I think are interesting.
Yeah, me too.
Exactly. Like I just said, he just signed like $100 million Spotify, $200 million.
That's what they're saying now. It's 200 million, closer to 200.
Wow, that is crazy. $200 million podcast deal.
And now he doesn't have to pay California state taxes, so that's an additional 10%. So that's saving, moving to Texas, saving him $20 million.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. But overall, $200 million in a podcast deal, which I think is crazy. My question to you, bro, do you see anyone else getting that type of money for a podcast in the future?
Sure. Absolutely.
You think there's going to be more of that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's going to be interesting because, that's why, when I remember, so my podcast is 4 years old. I think I'm literally editing episode 205, 206 right now.
Right.
But when I started, it seemed like when I would reach out to people, they're like, "Oh, you got a podcast? Whatever." Now it's an accepted form of media. When I reach out to publicists or PR people or even the celebrities or whoever, it's not like, well, I don't have to explain to them what a podcast is anymore. You know what I mean? And I think Joe Rogan changed all that. You put 9 figures on something, it becomes real. So
Wow.
when they were throwing around the number 100 million when it first came out, all of a sudden people went, he's getting 100 million for a podcast? And then now you have Paris Hilton doing podcast. You have like major A-list celebrities wanting to do podcasts or create their own podcasts, which I think is interesting.
What's interesting, actually, the celebrities wanting to do a podcast now?
Yeah, they have their own. So now it's so like a lot of the comedians have their own podcast, and COVID changed the world of podcasting.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, by far, you couldn't, if you can't tour and you can't make your money doing tour or making movies, whatever, then you've got to come up with other ways to keep yourself relevant. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people did podcasts or they created their own to stay in the loop. So I think COVID changed it too.
Yeah. Yeah. COVID changed internet communication.
Yeah.
If it was going to take 20 years to get like this, COVID cut that
quick
in half, like more than a half actually. So that's something right there. I got a stat for you, Peter. Okay. I looked up Forbes. According to Forbes, 37% of Americans over the age of 12 listen to at least one podcast in the year 2020. Wow. Compared to 2019, it was 32%. 32%. So that is a 5% increase in 1 year span of these young children listening to podcasts. My question to you, do you see any downside to the growth and popularity of podcasts, especially since the really, really young children are listening to it? Or do you see it as a good thing? How do you feel about that?
That's a good question. It's kind of like I remember when they used to release CDs and cassettes and then they started putting the explicit labels on them. Yeah. Because children couldn't, we can't say that around children. The children need to know. And it literally increased sales to children because they had the stickers on them. Yeah. Because the kids were like, oh, well, that's the album I want to buy.
That's what I want to listen to.
Yeah. So, that literally changed. It kind of backfired to the people that wanted to save children. So I feel the same way. It's interesting because my kids, I have 2 daughters, and they were like in 6th grade, and they were the last ones to get a phone. Like they were the last of their kind of groups to get phones.
Yeah.
And texting and all that because we put it off for so long.
Yeah.
and now it's almost unheard of. So how are you going to stop kids from listening to podcasts? You're going to put a parental block on everything?
Yeah.
I guess you could, but I don't know if it's going to work.
Probably not.
I don't think
Probably
so.
Not. I think it's kind of good and bad, Peter.
Yeah.
And it kind of falls back on the parents on how they're going to.
It should.
Control that. It should, at least. It should. But these days, everyone is trying to be the parent of your kid. But
I raised mine. I don't want to raise anyone else's.
Exactly.
That ain't my deal.
Exactly. Yeah. How old are your children, by the way?
27 and 28.
Okay. They're pretty grown.
My youngest married and lived. Yeah.
Nice. Awesome. Do they listen to your podcast?
Nope. My wife doesn't. My kids don't. My good friends don't.
Really?
Yeah. I think I reached out to a couple. it's interesting because I reached out to a couple of friends that travel for their work, you know, and right when I first started, I'm like, because, you know, I made my list. I'm like, well, that guy would do it. That guy would do it. I can get him. I can get him. They all said no. Only because they don't know me. And I had this talk with my daughters. They don't know me as a podcaster. They know me as, you know, Pete, you know, just dad, whatever. So they don't think of me as, you know, but when I reach out to somebody I don't know, they go, oh, okay, you do podcast. Oh, and they look at my website or whatever, and like, oh, you know, you've done 200 episodes. Great. Okay, I'll do it. But my friends are like, yeah, come on. So
yeah, and it's like that with everything, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, it seems like I remember there was two guys that really started my podcast and got in my head. So I went through the list of people I knew, and then a guy named a basketball player named Smush Parker liked one of my posts.
Nice.
And I was like, you know, Smush Parker played guard for the Lakers when I was with Kobe and Shaq, and you know, played multiple teams in the NBA and all that. But he liked a post, and I was like, oh. I reached back to him. I said, is this really Smush Parker? He's like, yeah, it's really me. I said, hey man, thanks for the like. I really appreciate it. Would you ever be a guest on my show? And he's like, yeah, give me a couple of weeks. I'm coming back out to LA, and you know, we can promote that. I'm like, cool.
That's
like, yeah, I think he was. I'd have to look. He was like number 14. My guest number 14, or something like that. It was crazy. So I was like,
crazy. Yeah.
And then there was a guy I watched on TV, a magician named Adam Trent. And he traveled all of Europe doing magic tricks to get into things, to do things. Like if you want to go to the Monte Carlo Grand Prix, he used magic tricks to people that owned the yachts that were on the ships. And he said, hey, if I show you a magic trick that you can't explain, will you let me come to your yacht and watch the Grand Prix on your yacht? And the guy they owned that, yeah, okay. So he did the magic trick and he couldn't figure it out. So done, come on. So he traveled all of Europe basically on magic. So I reached out to him and he agreed to do the show. So I'm like, now people I'm seeing on TV are on my show. So that was kind of, and he was like in the first 20 guests. So
thanks, bro. Nice. Yeah. That's amazing, man. Your own family and friends won't get on it, but all these people on TV.
I had a guy that I used to go to jiu-jitsu tournaments with. He's a drummer in a band, and we were in the same weight, but we were in different age brackets. And so we were white belts and blue belts, and he's I think he got his brown or black now. But I reached out to him in the first year of my show, and he's like, "No, man, I got a lot of people asking me to be on their podcast. I don't want to do too many, but hey, man, maybe later." I'm like, "Really?" Like. So yeah. He said no.
Yeah. I got a few no's, man, but I don't really. I just
whatever.
Whatever, and just keep it moving. I kind of rather my best guests have been people like yourself, people I just meet online randomly. You know, I haven't really asked too many people in person. You know, it's just all been online.
Me too. I mean, who's your top 3 guests that you'd love to have on your show?
Shoot, man, that's a good question.
Oh, I'm asking questions. I'm supposed to be. I'm sorry.
What?
It's a bad habit.
That's a good question, man. I have to celebrity or anything.
Whoever.
Your
top 3 people.
Man, probably Jordan Peterson will probably be number 1.
Wow. Okay. Who else?
Man, after Jordan Peterson, I would probably have to say Joe Rogan, but I know he doesn't. I know he doesn't do podcasts, for what I heard. At least I think I heard him say that he doesn't want to. He does his own podcast, so I think I heard in the video he said he wouldn't want to do a podcast. But
so who else?
Jordan Peterson, Joe Rogan. Man, who would be my third one? Wow. There's a Christian guy who I know by the name of his name is Marcus Rogers. You probably never heard of him, but he's pretty popular online or whatever. I would like him. I would like him on the show. He's not worldwide famous guy, but he is. He has about 500,000 subscribers on YouTube. He's pretty big on Facebook. Yeah. So probably him, man. But Jordan Peterson, that would be a dream come true. Just to meet him.
So let me ask you this question.
Go ahead.
Have you asked him?
Have I have it, bro. I have it. I have it. I should ask him, but man, he has, Jordan Peterson, man. I don't know if he has so many people.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not impossible. It's not impossible.
You know how it is impossible?
If I don't ask him.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
I like the challenge, though, Peter. I'm going to ask him.
I've asked, and I tell you that because Dita Von Teese, she's a burlesque dancer, probably the most famous burlesque dancer in the world. She was married to Marilyn Manson. She had her own show. She has over 1 million followers on Instagram. It took me 18 months to get her on the show.
So did you ask her like multiple times?
Well, I asked her. She never got back to me. I asked her again. She never got back to me. Asked her a third. Then she got back to me saying, yeah, maybe in a future date. Okay. Asked her again. Yeah, well, you should contact my assistant. And a couple months go by. Hey, I reached out to your assistant. Didn't know if I hadn't heard back. I didn't know if it went into spam. And then we set it up. And then she didn't want to do it until she had her tour dates scheduled for Europe. And then that kept changing because COVID kept changing. So I was like, well, I don't get hip, but 18 months, year and a half.
What's her name again?
Dita Von Teese.
Dita Von Teese. Okay, I have to look her up. She was married to Marilyn Manson, though?
Yeah,
Marilyn. Yeah. Okay. Marilyn Manson. So that says something about, I mean, I'm not trying to pick on her now, but she's married to Marilyn Manson.
She doesn't care. Yeah.
She don't care? Okay. Nice. Dita Von Teese. I have to look her up. I want to ask you this. Go ahead, Peter, please.
No, go ahead, bro. No, it's your show. It's just my bad habit I have.
No, it's okay. I want to hear you speak. That's what makes it better, because Joe Rogan's show is like that. It's like they're having a conversation.
You should ask Joe.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask him too. I mean,
he'll say no.
He'll say no. Yeah, he will.
Right. But I think you would have to go after him with specifics. Specifically, what would you want to talk about? I don't know that he's going to spend an hour just BSing with you. But if you wanted, maybe how do you incorporate podcasting with your jiu-jitsu or your diet or something that he's passionate about? Find that niche.
Nice, bro.
That's what I would do. I mean,
nice. I'll take that. I'm gonna take that advice.
He's a super nice guy, and he trained. I met him. I've met him a few times.
Cool.
His instructor is Eddie Bravo, but then Eddie's under Jean-Jacques, and then I trained under John, his brother, and then I would train with Jay Zabalos and some of the other guys, and then Jean-Jacques taught a class. So I mean, you figure it out, bro. Yeah, I mean, it depends, but I don't ask anybody expecting a yes. How's that?
Okay.
I don't ask anybody, and go, wow, they would do it. Because you never know where they're at in life.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Are you a purple belt?
Not yet.
Blue belt?
I got my blue. I went, and John will back me up if he listens. But I was going to get my purple. He only did belt ceremonies once a year, and it was in December. And I have a rodeo I have to go do for my work. It's the first 2 weeks so I missed the belt promotion, and then he moved to Allen, Texas. He moved to Dallas, and I never got my purple. And then I stopped training for a while, and then I started training with another guy, and whatever.
I heard you told me that you haven't trained in a couple of years.
Yeah.
You don't plan on starting again, or is it on your radar?
It's on my cousin really wants, because he just got his blue belt. So he's like, you should go get your purple belt. I'm like, yeah, you go tell John Machado he owes me a purple belt. I ain't telling him anything. I'm gonna go tell a coral belt what he needs to do.
A coral belt.
I ain't doing that. And I haven't trained now, so I don't consider myself a purple belt, because if I were to go up against even blue belts, I'd struggle.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's whatever.
Yeah. When you if I take a week off and go back, it's tough to even come back from a week off. So
wait till you get to your mid-50s.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's hard, man, because I was training with Kaiki, so my jiu-jitsu, I started at the Gracies, with Hoist and Horian and Kaiki. They were the black belts that trained. That were the main instructors. Henner and Hiran were purple belts. Henner was still in high school. Henner Gracie.
Nice.
And Halleck was I think in 8th or 9th grade. He fought against Sakuraba and all that. But and so I went to the Gracies for a couple of years. I was training a lot. I was like I was going 3 to 5 times a week. I was going to the Saturday sparring sessions. I was doing tournaments and doing all that. And then right before Hoist was saying, "Hey, you're about ready for your blue," I'm like, this is awesome, And Hoist quit. Hoist left the academy. Kaiki left the academy and started his own deal. The two brown belts left. John moved to Florida and started training with Shaq. Was Shaq's instructor, and then so all of my instructors left. So Henner and Hiran got promoted pretty quick after that. And Horian was teaching classes, and Helio, the grandfather, was coming up from Brazil and taking part. He was like in his late 80s. And
wow.
And then I got my blue from Hiran. And then they kind of changed the way they do things, which is, they're right as far as teaching. And then I met John Machado, who was friends with his son, was friends with my daughter. And so I started training with John at Culver City, and then he moved to Torrance, and then he moved to Dallas. So he moved away. So I was like, shit, all my instructors keep leaving.
Wow. You're technically supposed to be a brown belt by now.
I still remember Helio, and it's a famous quote, but he says, the belts are only good for holding up your pants.
Yeah. I heard that.
He went back and I was there when he started wearing a blue belt. Helio, the grandfather that started it with his brother, he went back and started wearing a blue belt, saying everyone's getting all wrapped up about brown belts, black belts, blues, that, it's all about here anyways. It doesn't matter what the belt shows.
Yeah, man, I can have a whole comment. Jiu-jitsu taught me so much, Peter. Yeah. It taught me about, even with this whole podcast thing that I'm doing, you have to keep showing up, man. The only way you're going to get better at anything is to show up, fail, and then show up again, Yeah. And that's one thing jiu-jitsu taught me. I'm a blue belt now. I've been a blue belt 7 months now. And I would have never got that if I would have gave up doing it. So that's how I view everything in life, especially this podcast. If I'm ever going to get this podcast to a Joe Rogan type of influence, not saying it has to be that much to make a difference, but to even get half of his following, or even your following, you have a bigger following than me. To get to your point, I have to keep making. You have to keep making content.
You gotta show up.
You got to show up, and you got to get tapped out. You got to get beat up, but eventually you get.
I'll tell you this. It really does equate, in my head, jiu-jitsu or any martial arts to podcast or anything you're starting. That's not your job, right? You have X amount of hours in every day, and how do you use them? When I told you about Emmett Smith and all that, and you're like, man, how do I want to get Emmett? I'm like, yeah, well, in 4 years of consistency, everyone wants to be a brown belt or a black belt. You just got to put in the time, and you can't take 2 years off like I've taken off and say, well, I'm a blue belt. It got pretty good, but now I'd have to start all over again. So if I got into podcasting and took 2 years off or 3 years off, and then went back, I wouldn't expect all the same followers that I have now.
Yeah.
Right? So you got to put in the time being consistent. Pretty interesting, though.
For years. For years.
Yeah.
Great stuff, man. Great stuff. Just a few more questions for you, bro, and I have you on your way, man. What is next for your podcast? What do you see your podcast in the next 5 or 10 years?
I don't know. I mean, I've got some good potential things coming up. Because I tell you, are they going to make podcast channel on Sirius? You know, are there going to be multiple podcast channels on something like Sirius or any of the satellite radios, a Dash network or anything like that?
Yeah.
You know, and then, so what levels do you have to be? And then who do you meet and who do you know and this and that to get, you know, so there's a thing called Dash Radio. It's similar. It's a satellite radio channel. And if you buy a new Ford, it comes automatic with it.
Oh, nice.
They have 500,000 listeners a month on Dash Radio. And then they have all the channels like Sirius. You know, they have club music, country music, this, blah, 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 blah. And I'm talking to one of them about getting my show on that channel. That, you know, the channel I would be on gets 50,000 views or listens a month. So, you know, it's kind of like Spotify, you know, it's like not everyone had Spotify, and a lot of podcasters went, Joe Rogan's on Spotify? Like, he left YouTube and the autonomy. So that's where you get into, right now, my show, I have no one telling me who to interview, what to ask, or why I should ask, right? I don't have a commercial. Well, if you would like to buy Post-it notes for $19.99, you can contact, you know, I'm not doing any of that. So, and no one's telling me I need to do that. So if you get involved with a pay channel, you got to start doing that kind of stuff. So I don't know where I feel on that yet, to be honest. I mean, everyone asks me about it because I'm not monetizing my show at all.
Right.
So,
right. And you have no plans to monetize, is what I'm saying? Is what I'm hearing from you?
I would like to at some point, but I don't know what that point is. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I make good money with my job, so I like not being influenced. Like I could not release an episode for a month if I don't want to. You know, I'm not doing it because I need to do it to make money. I'm doing it because it's what I want to do. So I don't know. It's like monetizing. It's like what I was told by the Gracies was the difference between a brown belt and a black belt is your ability to teach. If they don't feel you have the ability to teach jiu-jitsu properly, they won't promote you from brown to black because they don't want you starting up your own school and going out and teaching people until they feel you're ready to teach.
Nice.
So it's not skill levels, it's not moves, it's not, you know. And so I kind of look at podcasting the same way. I'm not ready to go to that level of, I just want to keep learning right now. I don't feel I'm anywhere close to, you know, I mean, dude, Joe Rogan had Fear Factor in the UFC, and he was a stand-up comic all before he started his podcast. So he already had a following. He didn't start from scratch like we did. So, I mean, he already had a jump start, and everyone saw him, especially UFC fans, saw him every week. So, I mean, that's quite a head start.
That's a good point. Because I didn't hear about it. I used to see him in UFC. I remember him in Fear Factor, but I wasn't a huge Fear Factor guy.
Yeah.
And to me, he was just the guy they picked for Fear Factor. I didn't know about his martial arts or anything like that.
Yeah,
but
he's national champion.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a legit black belt.
Yes.
I mean, Eddie didn't promote him for years. He was a brown belt for years. Because he was doing so much traveling for comedy and then for UFC, but he's
such an odd combination of things that he has. You know, to be a stand-up comedian, but yet he's a black belt, and I think he does Taekwondo black belt as well. You know, it's just weird combination, but great guy. But well, also, man, Travel. I mean, I call you Travel, but
I know,
Peter, thank you for your time, man. I appreciate you for doing this. But one last question: do you have any question for me before we go today?
Oh, I got a whole bunch of questions for you.
Well, let me get one from you, at least one from you.
That's what I do, right? So
yeah.
Why would Jordan Peterson be your number one choice?
Good question, man. Jordan Peterson is one of the most intellectual, conscientious person I ever heard speak. And like he is not afraid to, but he can voice his opinion and do it in such a intellectual manner that it's just amazing to me, man. I never really heard too many people communicate the way he does and make as much sense as he does. My father passed away in 2019 from cancer. And I'm not trying to talk bad about my father, but there's a lot of things that I didn't learn from him, or at least things that he probably tried to teach me that I couldn't really grasp, or for whatever reason. Jordan Peterson, this may sound crazy to you, but Jordan Peterson is like my internet father. Like when I listen to him, he talks about men being men and setting these goals and being precise with your goals, knowing what you want, writing it down, and just like being defined of what you want to do and knowing what you want to do. He's not a Christian. I'm a Christian. He's not a Christian to my knowledge, or a professing one, but he takes the Bible, because he's a clinical psychologist.
Yeah.
So he looks at the Bible from I don't want to say a worldly, from a psychological perspective. You know, preachers preach, a lot of preachers that I heard at least, preach it from strictly maybe from a religious perspective, or from a personal perspective, or whatever. Jordan Peterson applies biblical stories to a psychological perspective, and it just makes me just think. You just have to listen to him, man. I have to send you a few videos I listen to.
Oh yeah, no, I've watched him.
Right. So the way he just talks about things and break things down. He's changed my life, Peter, to put it most part. He's helped me like in so many ways. You know, one thing I'll say real quick, I was in a situation with someone, and the only way I could get out of this situation is to be completely openly honest to that person about how I felt and what I wanted to do going forward. Right before I did that with that person, I listened to a Jordan Peterson video, and he said, you have to be honest with someone. You have to tell the truth, even if it hurts them or if it hurts you. And if you do that, yeah, it could hurt. It could be scary, but you will be at the place that you're supposed to be. You know what I mean? You're not going to be where you're not supposed to be. You tell the truth, and then he connected that with the Bible verse, the truth shall make you free. You know, so, and he actually gave a literal example of how it makes you free. You know what I mean? So it's just that, man. So yeah, he changed my life, man. I don't even have to have him on my show, Peter. I could just to tell him thank you for the advice, one-on-one or whatever would mean the world to me. It would mean the world to me to do that.
Yeah, there's a couple of motivational speakers that I've listened to, right? Tony Robbins. He did I heard him, and I'll paraphrase it. I'll probably butcher it, but he was talking to a young person, and the person was like, I hate my dad. They didn't treat me right. He didn't treat me the way I wanted to be treated. He wasn't there for me as a child growing up. And Tony Robbins said to that person, you should call your dad tonight and thank him. And the person's like, no, you don't understand. I don't like him. He didn't do anything for me. He said, well, you need to call and thank him for treating you that way, because he showed you how you don't want to be growing up. So you can learn from people that teach you how you want to be and how you don't want to be. But you have to be grateful and show gratitude towards them both. And I was like, oh boy, that hits hard for me, because there were some football coaches that I hated. I mean, I thought they were just not good coaches. Like, they didn't treat people fair, mainly me. And I carried that with me. And now now I hear that, I'm like, I'm supposed to go thank him? Because now if I were to coach or have that, and I know what I don't want to be. It's like, whoa, okay.
Yeah, that's nice, man. That's
really
different
ways to think about things.
Yes. Tony Robbins is another great one. And that's good advice right there too. Cause there's not too many people I hate.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, like my dad, my dad passed away 2 years ago, or yeah, about 2019, I think. And there are a lot of things that I didn't like. You know, he wasn't there for me when I went through my divorce and all that, and he was just not there. After my mom passed, he was like, he took off. I was like, but now I'm supposed to be thankful that he did that. So now I know how I don't want to be with my daughters. Okay.
Are you thankful?
Yes.
Are you still?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because now it's interesting. You know, hopefully time heals a lot of wounds. And you know, he's been gone for 3 years, and I loved him back then. I didn't talk to him for the last year and a half because he had Alzheimer's, so he stopped talking. So my sister and I would go visit him, and just would sit there, like not talk. You know, it's like, okay, we just drove 8 hours to come see you, and I don't need to do this again. You know what I mean? It's like you don't know if it's benefiting him. So it was interesting. But so when I heard you talk about your dad, I was like, okay.
Yeah. Learning the learning from people that you don't like is it's hard to admit. It's hard to even admit that you learn from something from someone you don't like. But
Mike Tyson has a really good quote on that too. I'll try and find it for you. He said that he was talking to a young man, and the young man was like, "Well, I hate that guy. If I saw him again, I'd blast him. I'd kill him." And Tyson, it was something to that effect. And Tyson was like, "Then he owns you because he's changed you." And it's like, oh. And the guy, well, no, but no. He now owns you. You're his slave. He's your master. Because if he can change how you feel, then he owns you.
He has control of you.
Yeah. I was like, wow, okay.
That is so true, man.
Yeah.
That is so true. And I'm gonna say this real quickly, man. It makes me think about what we were just talking about podcasting, the media. When let's just talk about the media real quick. When these news companies can put out a story or a video and get people to react, to like, to share, that means they have control over these people. You know what I mean?
That's
maybe
exactly right.
Even to us to an extent, because we react to it. We maybe not, you know, how some people do, but when we see things on the internet and social media, and if it gets us to do an action, it controlled us. All right, and not saying it has control over us like completely, but at that moment it did, because it got us to do something that we probably wouldn't have done.
Exactly.
You know,
I totally agree with that. And, you know, it's interesting how you can. How old are you?
I'll be 34 in September.
You're a young man. All right. You know, well, no, I mean, I wish at 34 I had the ability to have a phone and internet and YouTube and all that to learn Jordan Peterson. Because, like, if you didn't have the internet, how would you know about Jordan Peterson?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, or Joe Rogan or Rich Roll or Lewis Howes or any of the other, you know, people that are out there, Gary Vaynerchuk. And if you didn't have the internet, it would be word of mouth. You know, or whatever the news put out and let you see. It was whatever they wanted you to see. And so, and whatever they want, you know, if you paid them, then they would put it out, you know. So it's all about money, you know, and I didn't have it. I started this with zero budget. So, yeah, it's interesting. You know, I think, man, we're in a great time. And a lot of people say social media is bad and it's bad for kids. It can be good and bad. Yeah. It's whatever you make out of it. You could sit and watch YouTube, a jiu-jitsu channel, and actually get really good, not maybe practicing it, but getting into the mindset of X-guard or some of the different, you know, situations that you won't see in your gym if you only got 6 guys or in your garage.
I submitted one of my purple belt trainers with the move I learned on the internet. We didn't even know, we didn't ever even teach this move, you know? Yeah. But we happened to be we were scrambling. We happened to be in a position, and boom, I hit him with a move, then submitted him only because of the internet.
Yep, there you go. Well, so, dude, I got wrist locked by a black belt. And he goes, I said, how come So he was with the Gracies before. Then when that whole thing mixed up, he went off and did his own thing, and we rolled a few times after that. Super nice guy. He was an MMA fighter too, and man, he did a wrist lock on me. I was like turtled up. He was on top, you know. He was full mounted, so I'm waiting to do hip roll or whatever, and I had my hands in, so he wouldn't get underneath my elbows, and he just wrist locked me, just pushed down my wrist. Like, oh, I couldn't tap fast enough. And literally couldn't tap fast enough. I thought he broke my wrist. And I go, how come we don't, I've never seen that. Like, how come? He goes, that's not the stuff they want to teach. There are some moves that black belts don't want. My first tournament, I go, the Gracies used to not teach heel hooks. Any ankle locks, no knee bars. They didn't teach it to white belts because it was too dangerous, you know, because you could really get hurt if you don't know how to tap or whatever. So I'm about to go on my first tournament. I've been training for about 7 months. And so I know nothing. Like, I barely even sparred, right? And I go to Hoist. I go, hey, what do I do if someone gets me in a footlock? And he goes, you're white belt. You'll be fine. You know, no one's going to get you in a footlock. And I go, okay. Not that they were illegal. Now they are in a lot of tournaments. Like, you have to be, I think, a brown belt to do some of them.
To heel hook, you can't heel hook unless you're a black belt.
Black belt, yeah. So So I went to my matches, and the Gracie tournaments had no time limit. So think about that for a second. You know, and most of the matches were under 5 minutes, but some went on for like 35, 40 minutes. Like, there were no time limits. So the guy I was going to for the finals was from Texas. And the match before us was like 45 minutes long. So we're both sitting there. You know, you kind of get amped up, right? You know, you're like, and then you kind of come down because you're like, okay, this is taking a long time. Anyways, we get out there and we start going, and I shoot, I get it, I come up, and he sets in an ankle. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. I've never been put in one before, ever, because they don't teach it to white belts. And so I'm like, okay, I don't want to roll the wrong way because I don't know I don't know what to do. And he didn't have it in deep. He wasn't down on the foot. He was more up on the shin. Yeah. And so he's cranking on my shin. I'm like, okay, that doesn't hurt enough to tap, but I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And we sat there for it felt like 5-10 minutes. Because like I don't want to grab, and I didn't want to roll that way. But if I'm thinking, like, we're in a match and I'm going, well, if I roll that way, my ankle would be okay. Don't do that. You know, I want to. If I roll forward, but then he'll get me up. And finally, we get done. He finally sits back a little bit more because his coach is telling him what to do. And he sits back. I tap because I don't know what to. Whatever, you know. I'm not gonna get hurt for it. And I go to class the next week, and Hoist goes, "Hey, how did you do?" I go, "Well, Hoist, the guy got me in a footlock." He goes, "I'll show you later." You know, like, come on, man. If you're not gonna teach it, you shouldn't allow it.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Oh, you're not gonna be footlocked.
He literally told me. I'm like, you know, you ain't gonna get mad at him, but
no, I wouldn't. I hope he just laughed it off like he did.
Oh yeah. No, dude. I always tell people, most of the fighters I've met, subsequently trained with, or just met, are super nice guys. I don't know how many MMA fighters you've met, but most of them are just good people. I mean, they're just,
they get a misconception that they're just, you know, mean guys, man. I mean, some of them got some egos, but I think, you know, we all got egos to an extent. But yeah, I met a few MMA fighters, and they're all great guys, man. And and most of them really want to teach you, you know, and show you things. At least the ones that I came across, man. Hey, Peter, bro, thank you again for your time, man. And I was hoping that you would be, what can I say, talkative and, you know, interact with the questions, and you did exactly all that. I appreciate you for all that, man. Before we go, could you shout out your YouTube, your website, in case anyone wants to get in touch with you?
Yeah, everything's under The Travel Wins. And I think I told you on one of your lives that you did with OG Challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah, talk about small world. So I had a guy on my show named OG Mac Drama, who is a record label president, and I asked him to be on the show, and he was. And then I go down to San Diego, and Mac calls me up. Mac lives in Arizona, but he's hey, I'm in San Diego. So Mac and I go, hey, I'm going to be down in San Diego too. Let's meet up, because I was down there for work. He goes, hey, if you're down in San Diego, can you do me a favor? Can you come by, and are you going back up to LA? I go, yeah, that's, you know. He goes, can you take my friend up to LA? So a guy I've never met before. And I'm like, yeah, all right, you know. So I go meet Mac, OG Cali Joe's there, and a guy named James from Adu Clothing. And James was going up to it was either the BET Awards or Source Awards. James is a clothing designer, and he's got his own clothing line. And I don't know why Cali Joe was there. I had no idea why. But so we just started hanging out and talking and all that. And so I drive James all the way back up to LA, and so Mac, and it was cool. Like, that's how you meet people to that.
Wow.
I could have just said, no, hey, I haven't got time. I'm too busy, whatever.
Yeah.
You know, and because I did that, I now meet you.
You meet me. Wow. Ain't that something, man?
Yeah,
That's amazing how that works. That's amazing how that works, man. All you had to do was say one word. This wouldn't be happening.
Say
But,
that word was yes.
Yes.
That's the magic word.
Good stuff, bro.
Yeah,
Good stuff, man.
I appreciate you having me on. But
no, I appreciate you, man. Your website. Say you say everything is under
The Travel Wins.
Travel Wins. Okay, awesome.
And
Awesome,
I came up with that because when I was traveling for work,
mm-hmm.
you know, it's weird. Like what do you name your show, your podcast show or whatever? It's like, it's kind of weird to have to think about that. But I sat down and, like, when I traveled for work, I didn't know how much, you know, like, I would always be like, oh my, it's like going to a jiu-jitsu class. Oh, I got to do this. I got to do that. I got to do that. You know, I put so much thought into it that I needed a break. Right. So when I would travel for work, I was like, man, I got to sell this much to make this much to pay for my gas and my food, my hotel. And it would just kind of get in my own head. And so I would try and come up with ways to get wins on the road without it being about the dollars always. So it's not always about the dollar. Maybe it's meeting somebody new. Maybe it's having a conversation with somebody. Maybe it's seeing something, getting off the road and stopping and taking a look at a mountain scene or going to a museum. So I could have a win even without worrying about the dollars. And now my dollars have never been better.
Nice, bro.
So
cool, man.
That's the travel
cool.
win. Yeah.
The travel win. Okay, I got it. The travel win. Nice, man. That should have been the question I asked you. I should have asked you that.
That's all good.
How you came up with that in the beginning. I couldn't think of that. But good stuff, bro, man. Bro,
Yeah,
it was great talking to you.
Now,
I appreciate
Are you in the Denver area?
I'm in Colorado Springs.
Okay. The girl I just interviewed is Jessica. She's in Colorado Springs.
I watched a few minutes of that, and I heard her say that she was in Colorado Springs. I have to look her up. I don't watch the news really like that at all. But
she's starting her own show now. She's trying to do her own podcast and YouTube channel.
Okay, I might have to see. How did you find her, by the way? How did you find her?
LinkedIn.com.
LinkedIn? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I might see if I can interview her as well. That's nice that you got it.
Most of the people have been either LinkedIn or Instagram.
LinkedIn and Instagram? Okay.
Yeah. And now it's weird because now people are asking to be on my show. So that's kind of weird. Like, wow. I'm getting requests to be, hey, can I be on your show? Like, yeah. Really? Yeah. So that's a trip.
You're on your way, man. I got to get to that point. But it's coming, though. It's
4
coming.
years later. Yeah.
4 years. It's coming. I've been doing mine for about 4 years, too. But not really consistently like that. They've been off and on. But we'll see how it goes.
Go ask your black belt how fast you could go from, if you went 3 times a week for 4 years versus 3 times a month for 4 years.
Well, yeah, exactly.
So that's what it is. So.
Exactly, man. Peter, man, thank you, bro. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Man. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. And I appreciate it. If you're watching this on YouTube, please give me a like and subscribe. Comment below your thoughts. Holler at Peter at the Travel Wins. Peter, you have a good night, bro.
Thanks,
see you later, man.
Appreciate it, bro.
See you later. Thank you, man.